the wolf is not no longer welcome in the lower 48. You know, we just don't have room for him. One of the little ones started playing with my underwear. They were boxer shorts. He's playing with them. The next thing I know, they're around his neck.
Somebody else asked how we even got our main farm.
We had that ground there, and a power plant came in and forced them to move.
Okay guys, welcome back. Today's an exciting day because Dad and I are back on the podcast studio. It's been a minute. Usually I do these with Alex too. Alex has been wherever he's been.
He's catching salmon on Lake Michigan today, I think.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. For everybody asking, when's the video that's coming out next with you and Alex? We are going to go muskie fishing in August. So that's exciting. But yeah. Dad and I are at the farm. We're back in Illinois. We've been traveling like crazy. So we figured, why the heck not? Let's do a podcast. We don't have the podcast mics because we don't have the audio.
Yeah, I told Sydney to bring it, and she's pretty, a lot of stuff slips her mind now that she turned 26 years old.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of things a 60-year-old would say. But anyways, we're excited. Today's been fun. It's July. Everybody's getting excited for hunting season, including us.
How do you like Mom's new rocking chair she paid $1,000 for?
From the Amish?
Yeah.
Is that expensive for a rocking chair?
I don't know. I would never give $1,000 for rocking chairs.
I don't think I would either.
Especially with bird poop on them right behind your hair there. But
yeah, it's because all the new birds are nesting.
Yeah, but they're barn swallows. You leave them alone. Don't be blowgunning them or nothing. They're my friends.
Yeah, I know. Should we not be rocking so much? Jack's looking at us like, maybe we should stay in. This is bad. But, oh gosh. Well, Dad, what have you been up to? You have been traveling. It is June, or it is July. It is July 10th or 11th, I believe.
When was the last time you were here?
May. Into May.
It's been tough. You haven't been around. Neither is Clint, and it's pretty sad without you guys around here.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Well, it gets lonely.
I know. I pull up to the house with you guys, and there's only 2 trucks in the driveway.
Yeah. That's kind of, yeah, I forgot we had 5 of them sitting out there at one point.
Yeah, and then like all the guys are usually coming up to come fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, Dakota drops in on us once in a while, though. Keeps us company. He's got a new little baby. I like him bringing him out here.
Yeah. Well, we've been traveling a bunch, but I think like when October comes back, it's going to be where I'm back, you know?
Yeah, that'll be good. You'll be here till by December. I'll be glad you'll be gone.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes. It's like, but you've been.
Then the snow geese will show up. You'll be back.
Jack will be here.
Then the turkeys will start gobbling. Then you'll be back.
I'm here. Yeah. I'm just in and out. Yeah. You know, it's like, besides fishing and getting ready for deer season, and turkey season's not here, it's kind of like, all right, time to travel. That's what you do. You were just in Alaska?
Oh, that was brutal. 15 days. Never saw a brown. Well, I saw one glimpse of a brown bear going through the brush. I was trying to spear a grizzly, as you know, and I had 24 black bears walking around underneath me, but never did have that grizzly come in. And makes you appreciate it when it happens, you know. So I was glad that at some point in my life I did spear a grizzly, but man, to get that second one, it's been rough.
You had that big black, was it that black bear that was just laying there?
Wasn't she fat?
Come on, just laying in the food?
Yeah, but you know what? I was there in that very same location. That's a bait that they set, and they've been baiting there for 10 years. And I was there 3 years ago, the year I speared my grizzly bear. And the very same bear, the pictures that I showed didn't show it, but she has 2 white spots right here. And when she was walking into the bait, she stood up to scratch her back on a tree, and I could see those 2 white spots. And so I had sat in the tree with that bear under me the first time I came. She had 3 little baby cubs, and she would look up at me and feed, and the little cubs would look at me. I actually took my underwear off because they were so annoying, making so much noise and eating all the bait, and dropped them on them. I thought this would horrify them. You know, they got that human odor. Well, one of the little ones started playing with my underwear. They were boxer shorts. He's playing with them. The next thing I know, they're around his neck, you know, and he's, so anyway, I had a kind of a soft spot in my heart for her. And when she came in, you know, at first I thought it was a boar coming. I'm like, oh, that's a huge black bear. I'm going to spear him. But when she stood up and scratched her back on the tree, I looked and I'm like, that's the same bear, you know. and because she's a color phase, so what's the odds of a cinnamon bear with 2 white spots in the same location? It's 1 in a billion, you know. So I like that's her, and she's barren now, but she's old and fat and healthy, and looking up at me is like, I didn't find the nerve in me to spear her. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, that picture was funny of her just eating there.
Yeah, you're laying in the food, eating. But every once in a while, she'd get her head up and look left and right. You know, she's looking for grizzlies. There were grizzlies in the area. They just weren't hitting my baits, you know.
Do you stay in a campsite when you're there fishing, hunting?
Yeah, it was fun. On the river, catching sockeye. It was fun.
Yeah, because you brought a bunch home.
Yeah, they were good, weren't they?
Yeah, they were really good.
Yeah.
And then you have that cool video. I remember he called me. We call him every day, making sure he's alive and didn't die from a grizzly attack.
Yeah.
And you were so excited about having a trail camera perched up, and you got 2 or 3 squirrels that were just demolished by the rock.
Well, I got 1 under my deadfall on camera, but I actually got 4 or 5, and then I got 3 or 4 with snares, which was really cool on video. But the one with the rock on it was epic, you know, because no one ever gets those. You see all these bushcraft guys on the internet, they're constantly talking about, here, this is how you do it and stuff. And when I watch those, because I'm interested in it, I watch them and I see where, you know, your concept's okay, but you're using too heavy a wire, or your deadfall's okay, but you've got your rock prop too high, that will never work. That's the difference between a YouTube doer and who's the guy that's getting ready to fight Tyson? The big YouTuber. Oh man, he's a monster YouTuber. Instagram.
The brothers?
Yeah.
What's his name? Logan? I know you're talking about. The older one just interviewed Trump.
I love that guy.
I know you're talking about. Jake Paul.
Oh man, the dude he's such a funny dude, you know.
Okay.
I like him, and you know, I love watching his videos, and he's such a great self-promoter. He's been a great self-promoter since he was 18 years old, you know. And a lot of people hate him because he declares he's the world's greatest heavyweight, which is, I know when they turn the camera off, he goes back in the other room and laughs. He goes, boy, they're going to hate on that one, you know, but he knows he's going to get 200,000 likes.
Do you remember Vine? Do you know what Vine is?
No.
Vine was like the first social media platform that was like quick videos, kind of like how you have reels and things. Mm-hmm. That's where they got famous. The brothers got famous on Vine. I think they were probably like 16 years old.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm so interested in that kid that I actually watched the documentary on Netflix of him, and it was. Is there one? Oh, it's great.
We're talking about Jake Paul.
Yeah, it's great. It shows him and his brother and his dad when they were little, growing up, and shaking their butt in front of the cameras and stuff going viral. And then they got in an argument and they separated their ways, and they were mad at each other for a while. Now they're friends again, and they're both, you know.
I got to make sure you're talking about the same. I think you are.
Well, yeah, they're fighting Tyson. I mean, it's the same dude.
Yeah.
It's Jake Paul, definitely. Everybody's hating on him. Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well,
anyway, what I was getting at is there's a lot of these people on the internet that are always telling us how to hunt whitetails, how to, you know, set a trap, how to do bushcraft. And, you know, I watch them and I'm like, and I know there's a lot of guys that are bushcraft experts way over my head, you know, but I watch that stuff and I say to myself, this dude is nothing but a YouTuber, because that trap would never catch a squirrel, you know. And so anyway, it was gratifying to know that, you know, I got it on video and nobody.
Wait, so how did you do it?
So I set my rock up with a 4-point hitch but I modified the deadfall, which most people use a 4-point hitch, and it takes a lot of leverage to set them off so they fall, okay? But there's a lot more to that. I mean, you have to have a flat surface. It needs to be a hard surface. That way it kills your prey when it falls on them. The rock has to be a certain heaviness. So if it's too heavy, it won't go off. If it's too light, it won't kill them. So there's a lot goes into it. We talk about it for 45 minutes, but I mean, it's not easy. And so when it happened, and it happened on video, you know, I was excited about that I killed a squirrel that way and got it on beautiful video. And so that's what I was, you know, pretty excited about. You know, heck, let's play it. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
I'm pretty proud of it.
Let's play it.
Yeah, so isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I like that.
I just thought it was hilarious when
Yeah.
you sent it to me because you're like, I have something great to send you. Half the time I have no idea what you're about to send me. And
Yeah.
I just knew.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I thought it was great. When when we were just talking about it, when somebody else is so excited about something, you get even more excited
Yeah.
because you're like, wait, that is
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes the right kind of person to appreciate that piece of video to understand the gravity of what it says, and hold on a minute.
You're good.
Mr. Trump, I'm in a meeting. Can I call you right back? Thank you. So,
Mr. Trump.
anyway, when it happened, I was pretty thrilled about it, but it takes the right personality or someone that really knows to appreciate that video. So, I was glad I got it, but now I'm working on doing some deadfalls on wild hogs and raccoons and stuff, and you're involved with me. It's fun doing it. I like doing those. I like doing those. I've been doing it my whole life.
Yeah, because you've grown up bow hunting and done the whole.
Yeah.
You've done everything with your bow, and then now you've done the majority of it with your spear.
Yeah.
So now I feel like you're getting a little bit more crafty and showing off like your craft behind.
Yeah, I just never videoed it before, but that's the one thing that I've always said and hammered that on you is that people in this day and age, they declare crazy things on the internet all the time, and so unless you've got it on video, they're probably not going to believe you. And even if you get it on video, they're going to be doubting, so
Yeah.
because it's so good to, pull tricks on people now with video and with AI and everything going on. It's a shame it's that way, but in ways it's not too, but still it's, I've always videoed everything, and I've had some things happen to me, as that I didn't get on video that, oh, well, that's between me and God and my family, but if I go bragging about it or whatever, no one's going to believe it anyway, so don't talk about it.
Yeah. That gives me, I asked earlier on Instagram, so that's a good route to go. Somebody asked, the new generation of hunters and promotion of the outdoors versus the old way.
Yeah, it's a vast difference. Yeah. And the new way is, it's a little disheartening in some aspects. To me, I find it discouraging that you can go buy a bow tomorrow and you can buy it at noon, and by 4 o'clock, if you shot it for 2 hours, you'll be proficient enough to kill a deer at 5 o'clock, And when I started, that was not the case at all. A bow today, you could put one pin on it, and you can shoot and you can hold the same location on a deer up to 35 yards and still be in the kill zone, Now, when I was, 11, 12 years old when I first started, for one, you didn't have any pins on your bow, and there wasn't a bow made that didn't shoot an arc at 35 yards that when it left your bow at the highest point of the arrow flight and at the mark where you killed the deer, that it didn't drop 1.5 feet at 35 yards, So today's bows are shooting, over 300 feet per second. A lot of them, like at my Oneida is basically a recurve, but it's still cracking over 280. And so back in the day, I remember the first time I put a chronograph on my PSE that I had, everybody was raving about, wow, it shot 185 feet per second.
Wow.
So, that's just barely beating what my blow darts do now, So old school was, you had to be a proficient hunter. You had to get close. You had to be a good shot, because most of us shot instinctive. And the guys that did have sights, they had a little pin that would have a piece of, it was like a sticker on the side of it. And you mash that onto the side of your bow on your riser, and that one pin would stick out. And then from there, it moved on to a little box sight that had fixed pins, and there was usually 3 of them. And then, and then from there it took off, and now you can actually buy a sight, as we know. I think Garmin has a sight that pretty much, guts the deer after you kill it. This is a new day and age, which is good because, your age class, they want instant gratification. If they want to go deer hunting or if they want to get into hunting, they want to do it tomorrow, So that allows them to do it, and maybe that's protecting our sport from dying out, which it's struggling anyway. So, but I'm still old school, as you know, and you are too in many ways, and it has its good side. But, you know, the best shot in the world, and I've shot with the best shots in the world. You know, I've hunted with them. You know, Olympic shooters, and I've been beside them with a bow with no sights on it, basically a recurve. And you know, in the backyard when we practice before we went hunting, they may embarrass me. But when there's hair on it or there's feathers on it and it's on the move, and I got to make a quick shot, by the time they've ranged it, it's already dead. You know, and that's still the facts for an instinctive shooter who's good. You know, and with today's bows, even some of the new, you know, the Black Widow and some of these bows that are recurves, you know, they're fast enough that if you're a good instinctive shooter, there's not a guy with sights on his bow that'll ever compete with you. You know, and that's the fun thing about doing what I do. Sometimes is just when I'm on social media. Is just reading the comment. I love when I do a duck hunting show or a dove hunt show, or maybe you and I are shooting pigeons in Argentina or something, you know. I like reading the comments that, oh my gosh, I can't see any sights on their bow, you know.
Yeah.
And
that's because it's a rarity
I
now.
laugh to myself and say, or even bow fishing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, some of the bow fishermen will say to me, how do you hit things like that without sights? And I'm like, you just shot 30 fish with your bow. It don't have sights on it, you know. It's no different, you know.
Yeah, because it's instinctive. So I feel like that's the same how I've like just grown up. Obviously, I grew up with my compound trying to shoot instinctive like you, which my brother is an instinctive shooter like my dad.
Yeah, he's deadly.
Yeah, but it is like, I feel like easier to your brain to learn as we shoot fish and we shoot the birds.
Or your target thrower, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, your brain is the controller of the whole instinctive shooting, and people are amazed themselves. You know, when you and I got the Laporte and we're throwing aerial targets. You know, the first 3 or 4 shots or 10 shots they take, they think it's impossible, but suddenly their brain starts taking over, and it's no different than throwing a football at a guy that's going out for a pass. You know, when Brady completes that pass, you know, he never in his mind, you know, calculated the distance he was throwing or the lead that he had to make. He just threw the ball and it went right where his brain took over. It's an amazing thing that God, you know, put into the human brain. And so instinctive shooting, luckily nobody realizes it's not that hard.
Well, there's another area too. I feel like we've talked about it a lot. You always say, oh, Sydney, when we're different areas, if you could have only seen the deer that used to be here, or the mule deer, or the elk, like, what is that like? How does that make you feel, considering my generation and the generations to come aren't going to be able to really see probably the caliber?
You know, in many ways, it's a mystery. You know, it's a mystery. Like, each big game animal is a different creature that has different environmental aspects that has affected his population or his age. Like here in the Midwest, the whitetails, you know, you and I both know they need to be 5 years old, and it's better if they're 6 when we shoot them. You know, we've let a few 5-year-olds walk, and but when I was your age, every farm had a 5-year-old on it. In some places, if you had, you know, a good forest that wasn't hunted too heavily, you may have 3 or 4 big mature 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds, and who knows what could step out. And every time I would hunt, generally speaking, every week of the season that I would hunt, I would see 1 or 2, maybe 3 shooters. And on some good rut days, I might see 2 shooters, you know. But now, I mean, we bust our butts to get that shot, as you know. And now it's like you may have 300 or 400 acres that you control, and there may be 1 animal there that we're concentrating on shooting. And I don't know if it's EHD or agriculture, why these deer are just turning up dead early. It's definitely not hunting pressure in this, you know, in the locations that we hunt. And talking to the juries and, you know, the other people that we associate with that are strictly big buck hunters, none of them have a good answer for it either. So that's kind of like the whitetails and the elk in the West. Now it's such a tough thing to get a permit, and there's big bull areas, but you may only get to hunt them there once every 10 years. Back when I was your age, I hunted Arizona and New Mexico every year.
Yeah, now it's like almost impossible, I feel like, to make a draw, and there's
no one wanted to bow hunt back then because it was old school. It was hard. Mm-hmm. You hear bulls bugling everywhere, but your average hunter just didn't have the ability to kill because that bull needed to be 20 yards, and it was still going to be hard to hit him or put an arrow in him. And recovery was a tough thing because bows shot slow. Everybody shot fixed broadheads. And, as technology changed, and once again, people bought a bow, and 2 days later they went elk hunting, that made it very more competitive, and it made the resource that much more vulnerable because, you put 25 bow hunters in the forest with the elk. Now, 5 of them are going to kill a big bull or kill a bull, mm-hmm. and 5 or 6 will kill a cow. Back when I hunted them, there was probably more elk in the locations that I hunted that anyway, but those 25 people were lucky to kill 2 or 3 bulls, because of the old school technology. It was tough, and so there was less people interested. They all wanted to hunt with a rifle. Muzzleloader wasn't even legal at that point, And so they waited to draw their tag with a rifle. And so, I drew a tag every year and killed a bull every year. I mean, they were easy to call in, and there was plenty of them. And if you blew one stock or if you called one in and, you didn't get a shot, chances were good that the same day or the next day you're going to call in another one.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Oh, I'm envious.
Yeah, and that was amazing. And, the wild turkey was the same way. When you were little, there was a high point. And I seen it in Kansas and Nebraska and here in Illinois. It's like, man, there was a time where we'd go behind the house, and you got in on that when you were a kid.
Yeah.
You'd hear 15 gobblers going up and down the valley.
Yeah, and I'd miss a bunch with my bow.
Yeah. Well, we're shooting at their heads, that's old school.
Absolutely. You talk about out west. Here's a controversial topic. Since you've been one with the wolves, especially up in Canada, you've seen it firsthand. You've hunted it for years and years and years because you're bow hunting them too. So you've seen how they act. What is your take on ballot box biology?
Yeah.
With the introduction of the wolves into Colorado.
Well,
Yeah.
I believe that wildlife should be managed by conservationists. I think the ballot is okay to elect, our leaders, but when it comes to conservation, our leaders should appoint conservation-minded people that understand wildlife. And the wolf is a prime example. I mean, the people that are voting yes to the wolves are the people that never leave the city boundary but a couple times a year, and maybe one of their vacations was to go to Yellowstone, and now they love the wolf, So the wolf is no longer welcome in the lower 48. We just don't have room for them, and making room for them is too disruptive. People say a lot of times on the African videos when we shoot let's say a zebra or something, you get the hate, and as we do with the wolf, why don't you leave them alone or whatever. Let nature take its course. Well, nature can no longer take its course in the world. And the reason when I say that, for the most part, large animals like the wolf, the elephant in Africa, all these different animals that we as hunters want to hunt, they can't just, you can't just let nature take course, because man has consumed this planet. If you look at the next time you fly over North America and you're in a jet, look out the window and you'll understand what I'm saying. Back in the day when an elephant was hungry and he was out of food, he would travel 1,000 miles or 400 miles, or cross the river and go over the mountain and down in through the vast Sahara and feed. Now he has to cross 4 interstates. He would have to go through 2 cities and get over 19 fences, And so now the only way we are going to have wildlife in abundance is through human management. And no conservationist that loves wildlife would say to himself, we can manage wolves in our environment in the West, because there's not enough room for the wolf. And they will wipe out our elk and our deer populations, and then they will work on whatever's left, if it's cattle or whatever. They're not endangered. There's plenty of wolves in the north. They will always be fine in Canada, they're in Alaska. They'll never be gone. There's no reason why we should bring them down here and have to compete with them. And by introducing the wolves, they're taking out all the moose. They'll take out a big portion of our elk population, and they'll really hammer the mule deer. It's a domino effect. When those animals are gone, Game and Fish has to reduce the amount of permits that they give me and you to go hunting, because now we have to feed all the wolves. It's perpetual. The more wolves, the less money we pay, and there's less money going into conservation. Now there's only one game warden for this 200 square miles where we used to have 2, because now the wolves have taken the resource. There's not enough money to sell tags, and it goes on and on and on. And next thing you know, we got a lot of wolves running around. Our moose population's wiped out. Look what's happened in northern Wisconsin. There's very few whitetails where there used to be an abundance of whitetails, and there's wolves everywhere. The coyote trappers can't trap now without catching wolves, because there's so many, and they have to release them. So that's how I feel about wolves. I don't dislike wolves. I love them. And when I see one come in on a predator call and I shoot him with a bow, he's the most beautiful creature I could ever imagine. But when I, get up against that big guy and I hold him up, I realize this is a meat-eating son of a gun, And when we turn them loose on a resource that is limited already, we just created a nightmare for the resource we turned him loose on. Because the elk can't run away. They're limited to where they can hide. They used to live in the prairies, and they lived out on the open prairie where they could see their predators. Then man came along, and we shot the living hell out of them, and then they escaped to the mountains. The ones that stayed in the prairies were shot out. The ones that were left went to the mountains, and the elk that live in the mountains, their genetics, and the elk that found that they liked, the mountains, or they lived through predation, they passed on their genetics. Now we have elk that gravitate to heavy cover because it's the only place they can hide. So when we turn the elk in on them, it's not like they can run back out to the prairie and survive.
You mean the wolf? When we turn the wolves
When
on?
we turn the wolf on the elk aren't going to run out of the woods where the wolves are, come back out into the prairie, run through Denver and across Route 70, and head out and feed and be safe. It doesn't work that way. And that's what the greenies want you to think. That's part of nature. Let the wolves run. That's the way the cycle of life works. And that's not the case. So it's a bad idea, wolves. So it's a bad idea for grizzly bears where we don't need them.
Did you see, up north in Canada, they are now allowing in certain areas grizzly bear hunting again?
Yeah, because they're killing humans and cattle and horses and...
Because there's been a ban on grizzly bear hunting for how long now?
It's been a while. I mean, it depends where you're talking. In Alberta, there's been a ban, but now...
Northwest Territories, there's been a ban.
Oh, has there?
Yeah. So I just saw that in the news.
Most of Canada bans the grizzly bear hunters. As long as Trudeau's in office, conservation and anything to do with conservation and gun laws and in the old lifestyle and the society as it once was in Canada will be jeopardized. But it looks like that apple cart's about to flip over. But he's done so much damage to Canada now that, it's going to be hard to repair it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was interesting, Dad. I like that take on all the wolves. I knew you'd have a good answer.
Yeah.
Dad is very educational when it comes to all things hunting. He is 60. You've seen a lot in your life?
Yeah, I've been through it, man. I've been through a lot, but I try to, man, I'm conservative, and we can't even talk about the things in the United States on your podcast right now that I would normally talk about with my friends because of censorship. But, with wildlife, I understand that people love grizzly bears, and I love grizzly bears. There's nothing more beautiful than a fully, coated grizzly bear when he's in his natural environment, and a wolf when he walks through the forest. He's such a majestic, beautiful creature. Or a mountain lion, when you have a rare encounter with him, it's just unbelievable. But to think that we should let them have free reign in an environment that we created, where man has wrecked everything around the few animals that these animals feed on, and to believe that we can let them roam and reproduce and kill and eat as much as they want because that's nature's course, that's not the case. Those are fools that believe that. And they're fools that believe that nature will take its course and everything will be fine. If we let everything go, if we let the predators go, and if we stop hunting as they do in Africa in some countries, if we let that perpetuate, you will be looking at extinction of the animals in those areas that aren't predators, because man and the predators and the environment that is so limited for those omnivores, they'll eat them all. It's a hard one to answer, and a hard one to argue about, because people are emotional, and then when they turn over the decision to the vast number of people that get to vote, most of the people that vote, unfortunately, don't live or don't have the background of a conservationist or of a hunter or of a farmer. They're city people that
they don't live with them.
All they know is they watch Dances with Wolves, and you and I are looking for a way to shoot a poor little wolf that's standing there looking at us. That's how they look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish they would stand there and look at me, but it doesn't go that way.
Very hardly are you going to even be able to see one. Okay, now back to Illinois, since we are here and everybody loves watching the Wells fling arrows at deer and schlock Big Louie every year. Back to my Instagram questions.
Okay.
Well, one, this is hilarious. So my dad, when it comes to podcasts, everybody's seen his show. If you haven't, go watch it. He's quite the jokester sometimes, where you say some things from I can't not believe you just said that. I went on Instagram. I said, hey, does anybody have any questions for Dad and I for this podcast? Taylor Drury says,
I don't even want to answer it already.
Let's talk about how one time we did a podcast together, you and her, and he made up that I was pregnant.
I vaguely remember that.
I think it was before she was married.
Yeah.
Now she does have a little one. Oh my gosh.
Man, what a beautiful kid she's got now.
Yeah, she does.
She turned out beautiful too. She is a beautiful woman.
Taylor, she's so gorgeous. And her and her husband, their family is just so gorgeous.
Is she still a party animal?
She's a mama full time now. Man, she's obsessed with that little girl.
I tried to party with her and her dad one night. That didn't happen. Man,
the Drurys like to have a good time. Dad has to go to bed at like 8:30. I feel like you're gonna die.
I tried to hang with Terry even. I can't hang with Terry. I tell you what, man. He's a troublemaker.
Also, the Drurys and the Waddells and Muntz, those guys.
Oh, yeah.
And Gregory's, all the guys, I feel like growing up, I've been growing up going to these shows since I was little with Mom and Dad.
Were you at the ATA when Muntz was singing on stage?
Yes, we went to...
He's a rock star, man.
Indianapolis, they can all sing and dance and party, and Jay Gregory's playing the drums.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jay Gregory had a hole-in-one today. He's in Europe. What a great golfer he is. He got a hole-in-one today in his practice round. He said it was the fifth one of his life.
That's one thing I feel like when you talk about old school hunting, all the people we've been surrounded by since I was little.
Yeah.
Obviously everybody, there's new people in the industry and people come and go and yada, yada. But our group of people that we've been friends with for a long time is a good group of people.
Yeah, they've been through the old school. Yeah.
They're all the old school guys.
Yeah,
I love them. They're so much fun, and
a guy you've never got to meet, but one I really love is Dan Fitzgerald. He's an icon to me, and he's him and his son. They were always something to watch. Some of the first guys. And he shot a Matthews bow with me instinctively, and that dude can hang.
Is this an Illinois guy?
No, he's from Michigan.
Wait, I think I follow. I know.
Yeah, probably. But anyway, old Dan, he's good. But there's a lot of guys like that, out there, and wish we could meet them all. They all got a good story to tell.
Deer season's coming up. We are a couple months away. People are starting to put their food plots in, trying to figure out where to set up stands, trail cameras, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
So everybody on here, I feel like, is asking about our property, how our property got to be so well managed, what we do to get ready for deer season, and what we really look for when it comes to hanging stands and food plots and all that kind of stuff. So, how much work did we put into the land for fish and game to thrive? So I feel like the first thing is maybe let's talk. Somebody else asked how we even got our main farm. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Well, your grandpa was a farmer / school teacher. Back in the day, we had 160 acres. A big power plant came in. There wasn't a deer season at that time. You weren't allowed to shoot deer in Illinois.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
when was so?
Like 1963, the year I was a baby, I think was somewhere about there. They opened up this county, and your grandpa killed a big buck. He was goose hunting, and a big buck. He had a deer permit. He had 2 slugs that my grandpa had given to him.
So Archie
gave
him to your dad, Dave.
My mother's father, Archie, was duck hunting with my dad, and he said, "Here's 2 slugs in case you see a deer," and they were hunting along Rice Lake, which, for those of you that don't know where that is, it's just as a crow flies, about a mile due east of here. And there's a levee around the river bottom there, so the water, when the floods come with the river, it doesn't flood the cornfields. Well, they would stand on that levee and hide in the weeds, and wait for the ducks to come off the refuge, and then they'd pass shoot them when they'd come over the top of them. So that day they were down there, it was kind of stormy, and my dad had those 2 slugs in his pocket, and he was sitting down the levee at one area, and Grandpa was another 100 yards or so waiting up there, and they were waiting for mallards to come over and pass shoot them. And I remember the story that my dad told me, that he looked down the levee about half a mile, and there were 2 deer hunters in red. You didn't wear orange then, you wore red. And they were walking into the forest along the riverbank. So he had his slugs in his pocket, so he took out, I remember so well, he took out 3, he took out all the shells. He put in a slug in the chamber, and then he put a 3-inch number 2 lead up inside, and then he put a slug in behind it. So he had 2 slugs and number 2s. And he's sitting on the levee, and he's watching, and sure as could be, out come a big buck. And that big buck ran out to the levee, looked around, and come boiling down the levee on the bottom side of the levee. And I'll never forget the story, because when I was a little boy, the stories were what that Grandpa and my father would tell. Those were what molded who I am, because you would just be enthralled, and I'm sure they would, flower them up for me a little bit, but still, I'll never forget my dad when he would tell that story, and he would tell it over and over. And it was a very accurate story, because every time he told it, it was the same story.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people tell stories and they embellish, the story changes each time. Those are the stories, that probably didn't happen like they did, really happened. But that story was always the same, even when my grandpa would tell me. And the deer come running down that levee, and as it come passing him by, boom, he shot him with 1 slug. Boom, he said he shot him with the second slug. And he said the thing ran up on the levee, and it ran by between him and Grandpa, so he couldn't shoot with the 2s. And then it ran down the other side of the levee and ran towards the coon. And he said, I gave him a number 2 right in the butt. Shot him again, and it ran out in the field and died. And he killed a big 10-pointer. And that was the first legal deer that Dad had ever killed. And we got pictures of your grandma holding me as a baby in his hand with the big buck hanging up in the tree, and there's Grandpa standing behind it with a old 97 pump gun. I think it was a 97. Maybe it wasn't a 97. I don't know if the 97 back then would shoot a 3-inch shell, but it was a pump gun, and I believe in the photo. I need to look at that, see what kind of gun that was. But at any rate, I don't know why we brought that up.
I don't know, but that's very interesting because I never knew that.
Yeah.
So you said you guys lived on 120 acres.
Oh, that's where. Well, so anyway, we had that ground there, and a power plant came in and forced them to move. They make you sell your land. I remember Mom and Dad crying and everything because they had to leave. We lived in the country, and I was mad.
In a little camper.
Right, yeah, right. No, it was a little brick house, you know.
Oh, was it?
Dad had taken concrete blocks and made basically a house out of it, and we lived in a basement house, you know. But it was in the woods, and we loved it. And anyway, they gave us. We didn't want to sell, but they gave us way more money than it was worth, you know. And then we ended up moving over here where Grandpa lives now. It's 350 acres, and you know, by fate and a lot of sweat and tears, you know, I added another 450 acres onto the main farm there. And then, you know, the story about this farm, a couple hundred acres that we came across, and but anyway.
So the farm this is something that I think is interesting because Grandma talks about it. The farm that you guys were forced out of.
Yes.
Fast forward to 50 years later,
yes.
You were able to purchase part of that farm.
Not 50 years, only 25 years later, I purchased another 350.
Oh, I guess it's been, I'm like adding your age up.
Yeah.
I guess it's been a lot. We've had this for a while.
And then the farm we're sitting on right now is adjacent to where they made me leave.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the farm, and then you can see the barn.
Where this lodge sits, my grandpa and my dad would sneak from the house with me, and we would go down through the valley, cross the creek, we'd come up through the forest and come out here into what was about a 10-acre cornfield in the middle of the woods, and we would sit out there, and the mallards would come off Rice Lake in the evening, and Grandpa would call, he'd call, and calling worked back then, you know, it would just really work, and once in a while he'd pull down a mallard, and they'd come in here, and you know, on a good day we might get 2 or 3, and you know, that was part of, you know, God had something to do with it. Here we are sitting out here now, you know, it's crazy. But what you were saying, how do we get to where we get to manage our whitetails? You know, it's sacrifice. I mean, my whole life, I've sacrificed everything else to have real estate, you know, and perpetually that generated a lot of income, unbeknown to me at the time. I just wanted hunting ground, but, you know, buying land and holding on to it is better than putting your money in the bank, you know.
And you were a little luckier back then too, because now
it's tough now.
We're running out of land.
Well, but you know what? Back then too, when I bought a farm, or the bank loaned me money so I could buy a farm. You know, I was dropping you off at school with Clint in an old beat up white van, you know. So you guys you thought you were rich because we took care of you, you know, but I was always nervous and paying the mortgages and trying to make a TV show at the same time I was running a consulting firm or, you know, building gas stations, you know, and every dime I paid, Carrie was pulling her hair out because I was funneling into mortgages so I had a tree stand to hang, you know, and a place to live. And the whole time I'm doing it, I'm thinking to myself, this is for Sydney and Clint. You know, they're gonna appreciate this one day. And that's the only thing I got right. Yeah.
Well, I'm appreciative because this is the best place in the world. This is my Disneyland.
Yeah, well, at home's where you hang your hat. You know, you tell my friends, you know, Brother Buck in Texas, he's going to tell you the same thing. This is the best place in the world, you know. You go to Georgia, that boys think that red clay is the best clay in the world, you know. Or if you go out in a boat with a guy that, you know, is a conservationist and he's saved his whole life and he's got a 50-foot boat and he's going out and he's catching cobia, you know, that's a conservationist that has invested into his love of wildlife, and, you know, that's home. So, you know, Illinois is what it is. I've been all over the world, and there's places that, you know, if we'd have grown up in Africa or if we'd grown up in South Texas or, lived in Alaska, it would be no place like it in the world, and there'd be no place we'd rather be. But this is where we grew up, so we think it's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dad, you're doing like your stories. Like I just like I don't want to even talk because it's so like captivating. What do you think, Jack?
This is good.
It's like literally, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Well, to wrap it up, be really quick.
Today was a good day.
Today was a good day.
We hung 15 cameras.
Yep.
The new stealth camera, which I'm excited about. That they have the new camera that was, I don't like to talk about gear a lot on our podcast, but that was a revolutionary. I mean, we've got a camera now that shoots 360 degrees. That's crazy.
That is really crazy. And for people asking how we know where to set things up, especially if you're a beginner, the biggest thing is when we were driving and looking, we found our food plot where our thick bedding area is, and every time we went into an area, we looked for tracks.
Yeah, and it's not rocket science either, because we've lived here and we've hunted the same land since Sydney was a baby and since I was, trying to make babies, so back then, I was learning how, And I learned how to make babies early, but I mean, killing deer, that was tough. So, but.
Well, okay, public land though.
That's tough. That's where, if I had to go back to the good old days of hunting public land, I would get out of that dang tree. If you hunt public land, more credit to them boys that do, because if you kill a big buck every year on public land, you got to be something special, But if you're just listening to this podcast and you're thinking, I want to go hunt for big bucks on public land, but I don't have any luck because I hunt a tree stand, do what I would do. Go on the windy days or the rainy days, get the wind in your face, look at your map where you're going to hunt. Maybe you got a stand of 400 acres, or maybe it's 6,000 or 10,000 on public land. Take a direction where you can walk, where the whole way the wind's in your face, and spend the whole day, especially during the rut, Not so much when the rut's not on, because the big boys won't be up and moving, but during the rut, walk slow and still hunt. And that's how you're going to kill those big guys on the public land, because those big boys are smart, and there's not very many of them. And no matter where you hunt, if you're hunting public, there's not going to be very many of them.
So then another question people were wondering, you've been hunting everywhere, especially for whitetails, because you used to be obsessed. I feel like you're still obsessed in a sense, but more obsessed watching your family kill them than you half the time. But where, besides Illinois, what's another state that you are you love for whitetails?
There's no place like Oklahoma for a lot of big bucks. I mean, every private land that's got, a few hundred acres on it is going to have big mature bucks. They don't get big like here, but you can shoot 150 incher there, and they're little bodies. They're, 165 pounds. So they look just as beautiful. And you shot one there.
Yeah, I mean, he looked gigantic.
Remember when he come across that creek? You should play that clip for him. That was such a special moment when that drop tine buck came across there. You were so excited. It was triple that excitement for me when filming it, There's a lot of deer like that in Oklahoma, so that's cool. Texas, there's a lot of big bucks in Texas, but that's a different style of hunting. That's really not in our wheelhouse. We're not heavy on shooting deer over feeders and stuff, but it's sure fun to go down there and rattle them.
We love to rattle them.
Yeah.
That's the best thing in the world. If you have a piece of land down there that you're like, not a lot of people probably hunt it, go down there or not even hunt it, just rattle. I feel like nobody, that's a secret that we're just about to spread, but rattling down in Texas, we took 2 boys with us last year and they're like, holy crap, this is awesome. Yeah, that's so much fun.
Play that clip of Sydney when we rattled that one and she killed. That was fun, man, and I love doing that.
That was so much fun.
But, you know, I would say Saskatchewan is probably a dream come true place if you got a good place there to hunt, because there's giants there and they got chocolate horns and you can hunt them from a tree stand. But
they're huge.
When it comes to rutting whitetails, you know, that's sit on bait area up there. But the Midwest, it's hard to beat it. Ohio is just producing some giants right now. And that's due in part, a lot of people will be mad at me for saying this, but there's so many high fences in Ohio now that a lot of these escapees have enriched their genetics there, you know. So you got the guys that, you know, lost some deer out of their high fence and they went out and bred does, or they grew up and someone got them, you know. So there's a ton of 200s getting smoked in Ohio now. And they hunt them there just like we hunt here, only you can bait there too, you know.
Which is, yeah.
But this is my year because they opened spear hunting in Arkansas. So I'm going to go down there and spend a lot of time with my friend Bill Jones and sit in his tree stands and try to spear me a big buck.
I might be joining you too.
It's going to be fun.
And then last question, if you could only hunt, I already know this answer for you. If you could only hunt 1 week at your farm, when would it be? 1
week? Oh, man.
What time of the year? Can I guess before you answer for you?
Yeah, you can guess, but you won't get it right.
Halloween weekend.
Absolutely. I figured you'd say November 1st or something.
Nope, Halloween weekend. I know that's your favorite weekend.
You got to kill them the week before the last week of October.
And that's when you can start rattling.
That's when the big boys come.
I was rattling last year, and Jack, who's behind the camera, I know he's a big waterfowl hunter, and you know he lived at our lodge. He lived out here for like a month straight with his buddies, and they would shoot like one snow goose, and it was the best time of their lives. And we would all call him every day, like, "How's it going? How's it going?" And my parents would hear a shot, and they'd call him immediately.
Yeah,
so much fun. But
one quick story before you go on though.
Well, when I was rattling, he was shaking so bad. There's 2 bucks. He's like, I'm like, Jack, we gotta get you a different camera.
You know, that you're right, because when I shot Goliath a couple years ago, I'll never forget that evening. I said, tomorrow morning's the day. It's the 31st, you know, let's go kill Big Boy in the morning. And you're like, no, I gotta go duck hunting with Clint.
Because Clint was like, please come with me, you never come with me. And it just opened, you know, with the wood ducks.
I am sitting in the tree stand at first light. The sun's coming, it hadn't quite come up, all right? And I hear in the distance, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh, they're wrecking the ducks. And I was scratching my head. I'm like, why didn't I go duck hunting with them? But this is how I kill, or this is how I hunt big whitetails. And sometimes I do kill one, but this is how I hunt them. During that time of the year, it's not even quite shooting time yet, but once it is just cresting light, boom, I crack them horns, as you know. And that's the same way. I crack them horns, and then I sit there in the tree stand, and shooting time for mallards in Illinois is a half hour before sunup, as it is most places. And you guys were tearing into them, man.
It was all wood ducks.
Well, whatever.
All wood ducks.
Boom, boom, I heard it, and I was like, man, I should have went duck hunting. And then, man, it got light, and then I looked over, and there he was, and he was looking for me. And the funny part about that is the night before, I told Sydney, I go, you better go with me. We're going to kill Goliath.
That morning, I will never forget. We were sitting down like every morning. You're always the first one up, coffee in hand, sitting down, waiting for everybody to get up. Clint and I get up and you go, you gonna come with me? And I'm like, I can't, I gotta go duck hunting with Clint. Like, he really wants me to go.
I'm so glad you never came.
And you said, today's gonna be the day.
Jack, you got.
There was a fog too. There was a fog.
You got to play that moment when Goliath came down through that brush. He was looking around for them bucks that were fighting, and he walked up. And it's crazy how a big mature buck can be a quarter of a mile away or even a half mile away on a calm day, and you can hit them horns together, get set, and he will walk in and stand and bristle up under your tree stand. They have that keen of senses to know right where those bucks were fighting. And that buck came right under there, and I shot him at 5 yards.
That's what happened to me one time when we were down at the 100 acres, we like to call it, and I hunted all year long. It was November, early November. You hit the horns.
Yep.
And I was in that tree that was like for a good east wind or west wind. I don't even remember.
Yeah. Across the creek.
He came
right underneath
and I missed him.
Remember, he was all bristled up.
He was huge.
Big 10-pointer.
5 years ago.
Yep.
I'll never forget that season. That was the same season I killed that deer, like the last week of season.
You know, Mikey Foster, he's a prime example. He's probably got, I don't know, 7 or 8 booners in his house, and he's killed probably most of them with the dang rattle horns. And he shot at half of them more than once before he got them, so he...
We love you, Mikey. You listen to that. We all got that one friend that we love to tease. He's hilarious. One time, nobody's going to know who he is, but we all have that friend. So comment below if you have that friend. He's Snapchatting this buck coming in, saying, Big Louie's on his way. He's Snapchatting it. I'm like, what person has his phone out Snapchatting, both still hung behind him with this buck coming in? Long story short, shoots the buck. I think it took him 2 tries because the first one hit
that was another two-shotter.
Tree. Second one, he shot him and he goes, this is the biggest buck of my life. Long story short, he walks up on it and he's like,
that ain't the buck I shot.
That's not the buck I shot. It was some ground shrinkage. We all have that friend.
That's hilarious.
It was so funny.
Well, we love you, Mikey.
Well, we're excited for deer season. It's going to be here before we know it, but we're going to be on some trips in September, so we got a lot of exciting things coming up, so stay tuned. I still got to finish out my July fishing and having some more out of offices. And
if any of you Kentucky boys got too many deer and you'd like to share a velvet buck with Sydney or I this year, we're sure looking for a place.
We would go for sure. Well, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to this channel. Let us know if you have any other questions, because this is going to be first of many. We have so many stories to tell, so many different things to talk about. Obviously, I've grown up hunting and fishing alongside you. So sometimes people comment, especially men. It always is. You only do what you do because you're your dad. You only have this job because of your dad.
Yeah, that's mostly true.
I'm like, well, no.
Hey, I told you weren't going to get that job.
Yeah, I remember that.
I said, well, I didn't tell you that. I said, honey, don't get excited.
No, you didn't even know what Barstool Sports was.
No, but I could tell you were so excited. I didn't want you to get too excited because I was worried you weren't going to get something that, I encouraged you to try, but I said, now don't get your hopes up.
Long story short.
You did.
He has taught me a lot. Obviously, as I've gotten in my position, I've learned a lot too, but this was fun.
Yeah. I'm proud of you, Sydney. You need to be a little less mouthy, but other than that, I'm pretty proud of you. And don't forget the SlockMaster at slockmaster.com.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Yep.